It's a Teen Talks Kitten podcast where I embarrass myself. Hello, and welcome to a Teen Talks game. Oh, I guess I messed up. Hello, and welcome to episode number 119 of a Teen Talks game podcast. My name is Vango, and I am slowly realizing that is a lot of episodes of this kind of puny podcast. But oh well, some people like to listen to it every week, which is crazy to me. But thank you so much if you're still listening. In fact, leave a comment, leave a like, share with your friends. I would honestly love to see who's actually listening to this every week. Some people are listening to this every week apparently, and I want to know who. Like, who are you? Where are you from? I mean, not where you from, but like, tell me about you. Like, who? Like, I'll give you some shout outs. But anyway, if you are listening to this podcast every week or you're not, even if you're not, welcome to the podcast anyway. My name is Vango. I hope you guys are all doing very, very, very well. This week was literally so busy. It's one of those weeks where I'm like, what did I do at the beginning of this week? You know what I mean? Like, it's so busy. In fact, that you don't know you don't even remember what you did at the beginning of the week. I feel like I survived this week, so I feel somewhat good, maybe. For some reason, I have Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto number 2 stuck in my head, which is crazy to me. Is that the train? Oh my gosh. But I have Rack 2 stuck in my head, probably because, I hear so much of it every day from watching skating. Mawasada, Umi Suguri, I honestly want to rewatch those programs now after this episode. But anyway, I hope you guys are doing very, very well. It's almost the summertime. If you're in school, hang in there. I'm in school too. Hang in there, people. Hang in there. Let's all hang in there together collectively. If you work, I'm sorry. I'm kidding. That's great. But anyway, let's head over to our program of the week before I become way too insane and crazy. Program of the week time. Program of the week. Okay, friends, I was looking for a program of the week. I just hit like the figure skating tab on my YouTube, and this program came up, and like I've never seen this program, never heard of this program. But I was like, dang, this program's kind of good after I watched it. Of course, this is Jane Torville and Christopher Dean, the famous British ice dancers. This is their performance at the 1995 Challenge of Champions. If that name doesn't sound very familiar, that is because the Challenge of Champions was kind of a short-lived professional show slash competition. Like it was a competition and a show mixed together in a way, not an official ISU competition or anything, but the Challenge of Champions is just like a show slash competition fun off. But anyway, Jane Torville, Christopher Dean, their 1995 performance at the Challenge of Champions is set to the music of Bridge Over Troubled Water by the famous, of course, Simon and Garfunkel. This program is stunning. They are ice dancers to the T, right? And they, Torville and Dean, are ice dancers in the sense that they stay very, very true, in my opinion, to the field of ice dance. And the original purpose of ice dance, of course, to mimic what real, not real dance, but what traditional dance looks like. Not traditional, but dance on land, right? How do you make dance on land look like dance on ice, or the other way around? Sorry. But this program is absolutely stunning. It is full of very short moments, lots of brief moments, and lots of kind of motifs almost of repetition throughout the entire performance here that are just so beautiful. They start off the program with this beautiful movement where Jane Torville, she kind of crouches, squats under, and slides under Christopher Dean's legs, and then he kind of pulls her up and he leans her back, leans her forward. It's like she almost falls. It's beautiful. They have this kind of straight line motion. I love this moment where she kind of puts one hand up, he kind of moves her hand up, and then she kind of jumps with it in a sense and turn around, and then they skate a little bit more in a straight line, and they repeat that same motion again. Beautiful lifts in this program. There's this one lift in the program that is a rotational lift, but it's so relaxed, it's so slow, and it perfectly matches the ambiance of the music as well. Again, that nice rotational lift, it ends with kind of a straight line lift, lay her flat, kind of lay her push her upwards kind of thing in their body movement. I mean, there's just so much body awareness in this whole program of where they both are, not really missing a lot throughout this program. It does feel so complete, and every moment has a feeling to it. Every moment has a tension through it in the position of their bodies. Um What else about this program? Oh my gosh. Again, a couple of repeated motions. The beautiful, beautiful, beautiful moment of this program, to me, is just the very, very last kind of curve lift almost. Curve lift. I don't know. Is it really a curve lift? Who knows? But he's kind of crouching down. He's just holding her very, very tightly. And she's kind of laying on an angle almost on his legs, and he's just gliding his hand across the ice, and it's this beautiful motion. And they don't really have an ending pose. They kind of just get up and do their bows, and it's beautiful. I also really love the moment where they kind of have this very elongated lift, a very long, long lift, where he kind of crouches down, picks her up, stands up, and then, raises her further and does the same thing, crouches down, picks her up and then raises her up. And it's a beautiful moment from Torval and Dean. And this program is one of those programs that's just, you could watch for hours, and I think they would come up with something new to see and to watch every single second of the program. And it's absolutely stunning. So yeah, go check it out after this episode. Jane Torval, Christopher Dean, and their 1995 Challenge of Champions performance to Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. Very much a worthwhile watch. Now it's time for the main episode. That was your program of the week. Alrighty, people. You know when like genuinely, I feel like it's been forever since I made these notes. I literally forgot what this episode was gonna be about until today. I was thinking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to record today because it's Friday. And of course, I always record on Friday night, like most of the time. But I was thinking in the shower today. It's Friday. I had to record an episode. Like I knew I had done notes for myself from on Sunday. I usually kind of the whole thing with my podcast is like I record on Friday, I upload on Saturday, and then I make new plans for the next episode on Sunday. But it's generally felt like it's been so long since Sunday that I could not remember what the episode was gonna be about, and I had to think about it for a little bit in the shower. I'm like, oh, that's the idea of the episode. But yeah, don't be forgetful like me. I don't know. I've been just busy. Maybe don't be super busy, but that's hard in these days and ages, huh? But of course, the figure skating season is over. I don't think you need a reminder of that. I literally say that every single episode these days. I'm sure we all saw Alyssa Liu at the Met Gala. Beautiful outfit, beautiful everything. She's a Louis Vuitton ambassador, I think she is now, which is crazy for her, great for her, obviously. But that's not the topic of this episode. I've already done 2 episodes on fashion and figure skating. 3 episodes, I don't know. Maybe it's time for another one. Kind of the Met Gala and figure skating. I always talk about my favorite costumes of the season. Maybe I should do that next episode. I don't know. But I can do whatever I want, of course. And this episode is another video essay. If you missed last week's episode, I did a video essay kind of vibe. I don't know. I call them video essays even though there's no video to them. But the idea of these is just kind of like a elongated rant, an elongated analysis, if you will, observations, analyses on the world of figure skating, of course. And I kind of just like doing these kind of in the off time, in the off season, in the summertime, because of course there's no figure skating to watch. But I think after a long and tiring season, you notice a lot of things, you think about a lot of things, you critically think about a lot of things, you start to analyze them, you start to make different observations, and it kind of turns into this big ideas in my head. And I'm someone who loves to think and think and think and overthink, and that definitely applies to the world of figure skating as well. Check out last week's video essay kind of episode, which was about the search for the best figure skater. And all the implications that come with searching for someone who is definitively the best in not just figure skating, but I feel like in anything that you try to categorize or you try to rank or you try to make a tier list out of, kind of. But anyway, this week's episode is on, kind of a very important topic to the general figure skating community. Not like hardcore fans like you and I, maybe, but people who maybe come around to watch every Olympics, if you will, or people who come around to watch, reels on Instagram or short TikToks about figure skating. And that like huge deal in their mindset is the dang backflip. The backflip, the backflip, the backflip. Like, what is all about this backflip that is so interesting? Of course, the backflip, is when a skater does a backflip on the ice. I don't know. Do I need to explain that? But they do a backwards somersault and they kind of launch their body into the air and they land the other way around. So they go backwards so that their head, yeah, I don't need to explain. So yeah, the backflip. What is the big deal about the backflip? So this episode is all about the backflip. I'm gonna give you kind of a history of the backflip, what the modern status of the backflip is, why I think it's such a like a dang popular move, and kind of all these misconceptions with the backflip, kind of how the ICU is trying to capitalize off the backflip trend, my concerns with the backflip, and kind of a final analysis like, is the backflip here to stay, or is it just a bad teenage phase that we're going through in this world of figure skating? And of course, is the backflip becoming too popular? Is the backflip becoming too idolized as a symbol of in and of itself? I don't know, but we're gonna try to explore that in this episode. Alrighty, so first up, let's talk about a history of the backflip. My source is Wikipedia. Please don't yell at me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My source is Wikipedia. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Alrighty, friends, a backflip, a backflip. Now, I'm sure that a backflip has probably existed for centuries for sure, like ages. I'm sure, like, I don't know. I'm sure people have been thinking about doing backflips for millennia, right? It's probably been done before, right? So, but figure skating itself is like not a new sport, but a fairly modern sport, if you will. Um, because the idea of wearing ice blades or blades on the ice and then launching yourself into the air to spin around is not really an idea that maybe the majority of people would think about. So anyway, a backflip has probably existed for ages. Backflips and figure skating have not actually existed for a super duper duper long time. We don't have an exact date of when people were thinking about doing the backflip, but according to Wikipedia, and I mean according to Rhiannon Walker in her article for the New York Times, Forgotten Fridays, in her last Olympic competition, Surya Bonaly pulled something special out of her black back pocket. According to that article, it was Terry Kubica from the United States who was the first to land the backflip at the Olympics. He was also the first to land a triple Lutz, but nobody remembers that. Everyone remembers the whole backflip deal. So he landed his first backflip in at the Olympics at least. Not sure if he did it in other competitions, but he landed his first backflip at the Olympics at the 1976 Olympics, which were in Innsbruck in Austria that year. And so yeah, he had done it. Oh, he had done it at other competitions as well. And yeah, and that was really it for that. So immediately after, not immediately after, but basically this guy, Terry Kubica, he landed the backflip and it was considered a little bit too dangerous and um it was a little bit too dangerous. It was a little bit, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So the IEC is like, you know what? We're not gonna allow it in competition, right? That's the important thing I feel like to understand. That like the backflip isn't forbidden everywhere. It's really only forbidden in figure skating competitions until like the modern period. But anyway, the backflip was banned in 1977. It says here, and even then, people could still do it, right? People are allowed to do it in galas. People are allowed to do it in, skating shows, Stars on Ice. That's according to Nick Zaccardi of NBC Sports. From Surya Bonaly to Ilia Malinin, figure skating's backflip comeback sparked reaction. But anywho, but yeah, it was a thing to do backflips, just not in competition. Now, the very, 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 very famous example of the backflip, and I feel like this is quite the defining moment in backflip history, is of course at the 1998 Winter Olympics. Surya Bonaly, the French skater, she was not in medal contention after the short program, and kind of the story goes that she had always been upset at the judges. She had always been upset with the scores the judges gave her. She never became um she never became world champion. She thought she deserved the title back in 1994, I believe, at the World Championships. And Sarah Bonaly decided that 1998 Olympics was her last competition. Again, she wasn't going to win or anything. She knew she was going to win or anything. So in the free skate, she decides to do a backflip. kind of as a sign of rebellion, kind of as a sign of like, no, like I hate that the judges have always told me what to do. I hate that the judges have always told me what I can and can't do, what how they've treated me, the scores they have given me, and so yeah, she did the backflip in her last competition, never to compete again, just as a final statement to the world. Um, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, la 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 la, la 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 la. But of course, people were still doing it, like Surya Bonaly in their shows and everything. And so the backflip was like, you know, the backflip was like, okay, well, it's banned. Let's focus on other things. And of course, there were lots of other things in the sport at the time after 1998, after Surya Bonaly to focus on. For example, the judging scandal at the 2002 Olympics and the adoption of the new IJS, the international judging system. Of course, we had the debates over quads in like 2010 era. Then in the 2010s, we had the whole quad revolution, and so everyone thought the quads were the coolest thing to do. And then we had all these women trying to land triple axles in this period too. And so there were other things to focus on. Honestly, can't remember a lot about this era of figure skating. I was way too young, but up until up the through the 2010s, like the backflip was like boring, not boring, but like it wasn't really a thing. Like who cares? Not who cares, but like genuinely who cares? Um and so yeah, it was never done again, never la 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 la. Who actually cares about the backflip? Yeah. In competition anyway, sorry. But this all changes with the fellow French skater Adam Siao Him Fa. You might know him because it's a very recent name, but in 2024, at the 2024 European Championships in Kaunas in Lithuania, Adam Siao Him Fa wins. He wins the gold medal there. He won. And he won so much actually that he decides, he knew he was gonna win by so much during the free skate that at the end of the free skate in the choreo sequence area, he decides to do a backflip because why not? Why not do a backflip? Um, he does get his little 2-point deduction for doing the backflip, but he won by so much that it didn't really care anyway. And he says himself again in that NBC article with Nick Zaccardi that I mentioned earlier that he did it because it was the right thing to do to motivate figure skating to be more progressive, to be less conservative in how it treated the backflip and everything. He does the same thing at the 2024 Olympics. La 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 la. And I guess the funny thing here, actually, according to this article by U.S. Figure Skating called "The Backflip is Well Back," by Walker or Elvin Walker, is that at the 2024 World Figure Skating Championships, it was actually Terry Kubica who landed the backflip for the first time at the Olympics in 1976. That judged Adam Schoenfeld and had to, do the deduction or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, and so I guess with the introduction of Adam Schoenfeld doing the backflip again, it was kind of this big deal. Like, wow, he's done this 2 times in a row. Again, he kind of did it in rebellion. He kind of did it in both situations where he thought well, at the 2024 European Championships, he knew that he was going to win. And then at the 2024 World Championships, he thought he was going to lose probably and just went out with a really good free skate after having a really bad short program. But that's a story for another day. And so the ISU decides to actually rethink. The ISU decides to rethink a little bit. They decide to rethink, right? They decide to be like, wait, what if the backflip was actually not banned? And so before the next season comes, it is now approved to approved. It is now approved to do the backflip in figure skating, and you will not, and I mean NOT not, you will not be getting a deduction for doing a backflip anymore. It is now perfectly legal. You could do it at the very beginning of your program. You could do it at the very end of the program. Regardless of when you do it, you could do it literally whenever you want. Genuinely, you could do it whenever you want. Anyway, but again, yeah, and that's kind of it. Nowadays, the backflip is, being done here and there, by a few skaters. And now I'm gonna shift back to my notes. A few skaters are doing the backflip nowadays. Adam Fa, of course, is kind of responsible, I would say, for bringing the backflip back to competition. Of course, because of his two attempts back in 2014. He's kind of the one that encouraged, maybe, or not encouraged directly, but indirectly encouraged the IC to rethink maybe their policy on the backflip and finally lifting the ban after what is that? 37, no, 47 years, almost 50 years. Is that how math? Yeah, that's how math works. Almost 50 years after banning the backflip back in 1977, they decided to bring it back in 2024. And I'm telling you, the ban of the backflip lasted longer than literally a lot of things. The ban of the backflip lasted longer than Blockbuster did. I don't I don't know. What would be a good example? The ban of the backflip lasted a lot longer than we ever thought it could be, right? It's older than me by like 2.5 times or something. But anyway, Adam Shamfa is kind of responsible for bringing back the backflip, though I wouldn't say he's the one responsible for popularizing the backflip. I would, well, popularizing the backflip in the modern era. Of course, Surya Bonaly definitely made the backflip super popular in her era, and even in the modern era, her, that skate at 1988 Nagano Olympics is still brought up all the time. I mean, all the time. But I would say the skater who is kind of credited as the leader of the backflips, I guess, is Ilia Malinin. Partly because I do feel like it already goes along with his reputation of being the quad god. He is the one winning all of the competitions, and therefore the backflip is kind of just a added perk to that. And it's kind of become one of his main, crowd pleasing moments, one of his main skills, one of his main kind of things that he's known for by the general population, I guess. And so, I know Adam Shamfos still does perform his backflip, obviously, but I think so much media presence on Ilia Malinin and his status as the quad god, as kind of a rebel of the sport, has kind of contributed more, maybe, to the backflip and kind of the status of the backflip. But Adam Shamfa, we all know and love. We all know and love, and he deserves more recognition as well. And so those are single skaters. I don't know if any other women single skaters have landed the backflip before. Besides Surya Bonaly, obviously. I don't believe there has been any in competition, but of course some of these women could be performing it in ice shows and we could never know. I mean, we could know, but I don't know. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know, so someone tell me. Anywho. Anyway, and then another kind of weird thing is the team of Deanna Salado Dudek and Maxine Deschamps, who this past season invented they're a pair team. They invented a throwback flip kind of vibe where Maxine Deschamps kind of backflip Deanna Stellato and she lands, which is kind of an interesting kind of variation of a backflip. They don't kind of do it. They don't do it like a throw jump. He's kind of facing one way and she's facing the other way. They're holding hands. He kind of lifts her up and then throws her so that she can do the backflip. So I think it's called an assisted backflip when it's done like that, a pairs assisted backflip or something like that. I don't know. They did it in their short program only this season. I don't know if they're retired. Maybe I don't know. I heard that Diana Slaughter is looking for a new partner. Maybe so. I have no idea. Um, but otherwise, it's kind of interesting how they managed to land the pairs backflip, which is an interesting thing to think about. The pairs backflip, eh? Yeah, the pairs backflip. But those are the three scares I can think of. In ice dance, obviously, no throws, no jumps are allowed, and so the backflip is kind of parts of that. Of course, there's examples of kind of upside down lifts, if you will, and then they land on the other side. So that would be kind of a interesting variation on the backflip, though they aren't really in the air for a lot of it, of course. But I am sure that there will be more backflipping skaters in the future who have the ability to do the backflip. Though, as I'll discuss later in this episode, it may be kind of a topic of concern that so many people want to do the backflip or will learn how to do the backflip. So, now to analyze this issue, because that's my favorite part of the dang episode, of course. Why is the backflip so dang popular? Why is it so popular? I think the obvious thing is, I think the obvious thing is like backflip equals wow, awesome, amazing. Because not everyone can do a backflip, right? You try right now. I bet you and I would both fail at doing a backflip. And so there's a lot of, pleasure, a lot of entertainment from watching someone do something that you don't see very often, of course. And so the backflip is really impressive on land, but then even on ice, right? People have gone ice skating, how slippery ice can be, how dangerous ice can be, how, thin those blades are. And so people landing backflips on tiny blades on the slippery ice is super duper impressive for sure. Yeah, trust me, like even regular backflips on land, people are like, whoa. People are super impressed by people who do like regular backflips on the land, like on solid ground. And so that gets a lot of fanfare, if you will. I would also say, the backflip is really dang popular because, just the spread of the media, for example. I mean, 5,000 times I have seen that clip of Surya Bonaly doing her backflip from 5,000 different accounts, 5,000 different videos. I mean, people just love to repost and repost old historical videos of that backflip, and it'll get the same, crazy, like, whoa comments, and they'll get the same misconceived comments that I will address in a bit. And because of the spread of popular media, because of the spread of these like urban legends, if you will, I do feel like the backflip has become kind of an urban legend in figure skating, an urban myth, if you will. Kind of like Bigfoot. Like we're always talking about Bigfoot. We're always talking about the backflip in figure skating for some reason. And I guess the popular figure skating culture. People want Alyssa Liu to do backflip. People want Amber Glenn to do a backflip. Like, come on, like, can everyone do a backflip? Right? Lots of things like that. I will also say the backflip is also interesting or very popular because it's kind of considered, I guess, a sign of rebellion. I mean, even in the figure skating community now, I feel like even within the hardcore fans, because the backflip used to be banned and now it's not banned, I do feel like it still carries some of that. Ooh, once upon a time, the backflip wasn't allowed, and now they're doing the backflip, and so it's almost a sign of rebellion against rules that don't really exist anymore. Of course, when Surya Bonaly did it in 1988, it really was a sign of rebellion, and that contributed to the popularity of that. And I guess the subsequent story coming out about Surya Bonaly and spreading across the internet helps with that as well. But nowadays, I do feel like when something is banned and then it's not banned, it still is sometimes perceived as if it was banned, or perceived in a scandalous way, or perceived in a mischievous way, in the sense that it used to be banned and then they took away the rule and now it's come back, and it's a little interesting who can do it. They're not fitting with the status quo, not fitting with the tradition of figure skating of having a banned backflip, if you will. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting trend in the greater world of figure skating. But a lot of social media, a lot of popular media around the idea of the backflip has led to a lot of misconceptions with the backflip, which are just always great. Like misconceptions around figure skating, and I get it. Misconceptions around figure skating happen because this sport is so confusing. Honestly, do I even get 100% of the sport? No. And so, with something like the backflip, I just see the potential for confusion over and over again. These misconceptions always pop around the Olympic season, I feel like, or sometimes kind of just whenever, or when, around the time when people are going ice skating in the wintertime, this thing comes up. But I do think these misconceptions mostly pop around the Olympic season because, again, the Olympics are when the greatest amount of attention are given to figure skating, the greatest amount of attention is given to the sport and its skaters and everything that they do, right? You saw like the surveillance of Alyssa Liu and Ilia Malinin during the entire Olympics, and you saw how many interviews there were and such stuff like that. And so, popular media, or media that likes to repost popular media, likes to come play with the backflip again, repost that clip of Surya Bonaly, call her a rebel, call her this, call her that. Yeah, misconceptions with the backflip. So they always pop around this season. I would say that the biggest thing about the backflip, it has been about race, and this is really unfortunate in figure skating for some reason. Like I don't understand. I know it comes from a kind of a lack of awareness. I do feel like a lot of people I've seen talking about the backflip, kind of clips and comments on those clips on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, saying that, oh, they banned the backflip because of Surya Bonaly, and they banned it because of her being black, and that is just not the reason why. I mean, it was banned far before that. It was banned, in 1977. Yeah, 1977, and so it definitely was not just because of Sarah Bonelli, not definitely not just because of her race that she was, the backflip was banned. Of course, there's a whole discussion on how her race affected her career, but not necessarily her backflip. And her backflip was motivated by kind of herself and her own rebellious personality against the judges. And it wasn't because of her race that they banned the backflip. That's one thing I always see happening. On the flip side of that, a lot of people say, oh, Surya wasn't able to do the backflip because she was a woman and she was black. But now people like Ilia Malinin are allowed to do the backflip because he's a guy and he's white. And again, that's just not the reason why that the backflip was banned and unbanned, or restricted and unrestricted. Not exactly the reason why at all, not related to race of these skaters at all. And so that's just one big misconception I see with the backflip all the time in both clips and the comments underneath those clips. People trying to spread this story, maybe they don't really know the true story, but people trying to spread this idea that it was race that was involved with the whole backflip. Surya, because she was black, it was a big no on the backflip. But now Ilya Malin, he's white, he's allowed to do the backflip. They're racist, la la la, and that's just not really it. That's not really it. That's the biggest misconception with the backflip I see. I also see a big misconception with the backflip and the points that it has, and by the points I mean the lack of points, because the backflip is not worth any point. We know this, right, people? The backflip itself is not worth any points, and so when I see people say, "But he did a backflip, why didn't he win?" No, that's not how the sport of figure skating works. And of course, us, very, very hardcore fans know a lot better. But, new fans to community, people who are general viewers of figure skating don't really know that, right? They see backflip, they are really excited. They really think that that's like the coolest thing, coolest part of the program. They think that that person, should win. But of course, you can't just win by doing backflips in the sport. And in fact, the backflip itself isn't even its own element. It's usually part of the choreo sequence, which is general choreography. And so that's another big thing with the backflip, is that it's not worth any points, and that's a big misconception around it. What else have I seen about misconceptions around the backflip? Gosh, what else? I've also seen the kind of thing about the backflip that, what was I gonna say? That it's like, I don't know, like deadly? I mean, I'm sure it's, very, very dangerous. Don't know if anyone's died doing a backflip on ice. What else have I seen? I was gonna say something like Ilia Malinin again. What else? But yeah, those are kind of the major things about the backflip. I feel like the thing about race being tied into the backflip for some reason, and then no, the backflip itself is not worth any points. Okay, anyway, moving on. I also wanted to note something interesting about the backflip, is that, the ISU, the International Skating Union, they were the ones that banned the backflip back in 1977, and they were the ones that decided to unban the backflip back now in 2024, just recently in 2024. And of course, leaders have changed over time. The ISU has gone through, new representatives, new government, and, the span of 50 years for sure. And so instead of just letting the backflip be banned, their decision to free it is one thing. But I do think that the ISU might have been motivated, a little bit motivated to unban the backflip, maybe because of financial reasons. Because I don't know if you've seen their social media, but the ISU, I feel like, is now trying to capitalize off the backflip. They post, videos, they post stories or whatever about with a skater doing the backflip, Ilia Malinin, Siao Him Fa, la la la. They post those skaters doing the backflip, and it's like this whole big deal that the ISU, a little ironic that they were the ones that banned it, and now they're the ones who are maybe benefiting the most off of it, because they're really capitalizing off the trend, posting on their own accounts, posting on their own blog, their own news stories, trying to make figure skating a bigger sport, which is obviously a great thing, trying to make it, trying to expand the viewership and the audiences. And of course, there's always, there's skaters from other parts, or not skaters, there's creators from all parts of the world. There's, all those repost creators, all those creators that make their own videos, repost videos that other people have made, la la la. who have made stories about the backflip, have made stories about figure skating in general because they expanded off the backflip. And now it's kind of free advertising for the ISU because they can sit back. The ISU leaders, the corporate leaders, whatever, they can sit back. These skaters like Siao Him Fa, Ilia Malinin, Dudek, and Deschamps can do these crazy backflips, and they get recorded, they get posted on the internet, and now it's kind of free advertising for them and for all these creators around the world on the internet. So that's just something I find interesting, kind of ironic, of course. They banned it and now they unbanned it, and now they're probably the ones benefiting the most off of it. It certainly isn't the skaters that are benefiting most off of it because, again, not worth any points unless you put it in the choreo sequence. Anyway, here's some concerns about the backflip. So, with the backflip becoming so popular, becoming this, burning topic of discussion now in the figure skating community and the general society, or general viewership of the figure skating sport, of the sport of figure skating, there have been concerns, mainly from, I feel like, hardcore fans, because, when you see something cool, you're like, wow, that must be really, really safe, right? But when you're a hardcore fan and you show when you see a change in the sport, right? You have concerns, right? Because when the backflip went from unbanned to now, no, banned to now unbanned, I think there were a lot of people saying like, "Oh, I don't know about this" immediately, because of these very common concerns. Of course, injury is the biggest concern. A backflip is, not super duper safe. Of course, even if you did it on land, it's not super duper safe. Definitely can fracture something and break something. Something can go wrong with your neck, your spine, your vital, parts of your body. Heavy injuries with backflips on land, right? And that's why people practice, of course. That's why the backflip is kind of done by gymnasts and professional sports athletes, and not just anybody can just start flipping around and expecting to land a backflip without injuring themselves. And the same thing goes in figure skating. I think a big common concern and a rightful concern in the sport has been injuries, because what if so and so skater got a really bad injury because of their backflip, or what if they're attempting their backflip when they're like 10 years old on the ice, and it's super dangerous for them, super dangerous for their, development, super dangerous for anything like that, that might hurt them. Uh, Another common concern with the backflip is that, to build off of that, some bad accident in a competition will happen, right? Can you imagine like skating the skater live doing a backflip and it ends really poorly with that backflip, and some really terrible accident in a competition will happen? I mean, we've seen head trauma in figure skating, we've seen concussions in figure skating, we've seen, broken, ligaments and limbs and broken bones from figure skating, sprained ankles, everything. We've seen everything under the sun in figure skating, big cuts, for example. And so I think that just it adds another element of danger in figure skating, an element of risk in figure skating that has led to this very big common concern with the backflip, that it will cause injuries, and especially terrible injuries in live competitions where people are watching around the world, and that risk for injury might just occur. Okay, what else was I gonna say? But yeah, that's a big concern for figure skating. What was the other concern that I was gonna talk about? Is it the one that I was gonna say? I can't remember. Where's my thing, people? Um, I think a concern that I kind of put out, or a concern that I have, and a concern that many other people have. Honestly, many, 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 many people have, is that the backflip becomes too overdone. The backflip becomes so overdone that it's not really a cool thing to do anymore. I feel like a good example of this is the whole trend in ice dance of touching the boards, reaching towards the judges. That really became a trend, and I feel like now every team does it, or every team basically does it. And I don't know what team it started off with. I don't know who came up with this idea of touching the boards and reaching towards the judges. I want to say it was Lila Fear Lewis Gibson, but whatever. But I feel like this season after that they did that, or whoever did that first, sorry. Whoever did that first, the season after, everyone was doing it. Everyone's like, oh my god, now we have to touch the boards. We should touch the judges. We need to reach towards them, show them our true emotion. And I guess my concern with the backflip, a lot of people's concern about the backflip is that it becomes a little too gimmicky. It feels like everyone is doing the exact same thing, adding the backflip during the height of the music for the big shock factor at the end of the program, for the big wow factor at the end of the program, to get some audience support at the end of the program. And, a lot of people are concerned with that. A lot of people are rightfully concerned that it becomes the only cool thing in figure skating. It becomes the only thing figure skating is known for, is that, oh, I know figure skating. I know the people who can do those cool backflips on the ice. And maybe that's like the concern, is that it becomes a little too gimmicky if people keep on doing the same thing over and over again. It becomes the same thing over and over again. People don't want to watch anymore, right? It becomes the only cool thing, and then, no, nothing against that conformity will change. We'll see how that has to expand, obviously, as I'm sure more people will land the backflip, more people will learn how to do the backflip if they try to introduce it into their what is it, into their programs. We'll see if that becomes a big, big concern with the backflip. Another kind of big concern with the backflip to me is, because of its popularity, like what about other parts of the choreo sequence as well? And, skaters like Ilia Malinin have done a really good job of this. They do backflips, but they also do, Ina Bowers. They also do other parts of the choreography related to this. And so I hope that the backflip, continues to be integrated, continues to be mixed along with, the traditional spirals and the Ina Bowers and the spread eagles and the cantilevers and the hydroblade movements and all these other kinds of choreographic steps too, that are, in my opinion, just as equally impressive, even if they don't launch a person into the air and spin upside down and land on one foot or whatever, right? These beautiful movements in the choreo sequence that emphasize, the edge work and the quality and the speed and the blade control are beautiful steps too. And, the backflip is very, very cool, but, maybe it doesn't have that exhibit, that display of actual, skating quality, skating edge work, things like that, as well. So yeah, it might become way too gimmicky if people keep on doing it over and again. What is another just concern about the backflip? Again, injury is a concern about the backflip. Yeah, my concern will be like people are too encouraged to do the backflip. Maybe it becomes a thing like, if you can do the backflip, I'll give you sponsorship money. If you can do the backflip, you'll win this competition. I hope it never becomes like that in the future. Because figure skating in and of itself, is a sport of uniqueness. And if you have a sport of conformity, that everyone's doing the exact same thing, everyone is playing the game the exact same way, everyone is, skating the exact same way and doing the exact same things over and over again. And, it's kind of predictable when these things happen in the programs or whatever. I can understand that the sport will get a little too boring. It will get a little too conformed. It will get a little too, you know what I mean? Yeah, I guess the main question going into the future, the main question as we approach, this next quad and the quads after and all the years after, really, the next question as we approach all of this in the figure skating world, is the backflip here to stay? Or is it really just a bad teenage phase? That's kind of the big question. Will the backflip become here to stay? Will the ISU ban it again? I guess that's another big question, right? Will the ISU eventually find it a little too dangerous again? Maybe the ISU realizes, oh, maybe some big incident happens, God forbid, of course, that convinces the ISU to maybe ban the backflip again. Of course, after Terry Kublika Quebec did it in 1976. They banned it in 1977. And so there's no saying that, something happens in these coming years at the side that encourages the ICU to actually ban the backflip again. So maybe the backflip isn't here to stay. Or maybe it will stay legal within the rules of the sport. It will stay legal within, the boundaries of sport and what is allowed in the sport of figure skating. And it will kind of fade out culturally within the skaters themselves. The skaters themselves will decide, well, backflip was a thing for last season. Backflip was a thing of some seasons ago. Let me invent some new other move that is hopefully less dangerous. Things like that. Um, Maybe it's kind of a bad teenage phase where you like doing it for a while and then you realize that you don't really like doing it and you just eventually fall off. Maybe it's a thing that only a few skaters will do at a time, and it will make those skaters unique, but other skaters will still be unique because they're doing other things. They're doing other very, very beautiful things in their own choreo sequences and their own choreography in their programs. And so it doesn't become, it doesn't become a teenage phase for everyone. Maybe it's just a teenage phase for some people, that some people are stuck in a little bit longer than others, and they like doing it a lot for a long time, and then eventually they'll stop. Who knows? All right, to answer the final question in the title of the episode, of course, is figure skating too obsessed with the backflip? I would say, in a sense, yes and no. I would say the people who are obsessed with the backflips are the people who see figure skating only on social media, the people who see figure skating maybe only at the Olympics, the people who don't, not, who don't are not hardcore followers of the sport like you and I maybe. I think most of us hardcore fans are kind of over seeing the backflip over and over again. I mean, even after they came back with Adam Sean Fa doing them, that was an exciting time when Adam Sean Fa kind of brought it back. But then when they unbanned it, and then Adam Sean Fa and Ilia Malinin started doing it in every single one of their programs, I think a lot of people kind of got over it. A lot of people started focusing on other parts of the program. Excuse me. But a lot of people have recently, I feel like, been interested in Ilia Malinin doing the backflip into combos. So I think still most of us hardcore fans are still very impressed, and I'm impressed as well by, backflip into triple axel combos is a really interesting combo, or triple axel into backflip combos are very interesting to watch, very interesting to see. And so, maybe general fans are way too obsessed and maybe don't understand completely the context of the backflip, the complete history of the backflip. And they have these misconceptions that it's really tied to race, and it's really tied to the winning the sport or being the best in the sport. I do think most hardcore fans are kind of over it, but still interested in case something new, exciting happens in terms of the backflip and how it all develops. Who knows? Anyway, next week, people. Oh, I guess I should sum up the episode. But anyway, that was the end of this episode. Excuse me. That was the end of this episode of the Teen Sauce Gang podcast. My name is Zango. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about the history of the backflip, my thoughts on the backflip, all the misconceptions of the backflip, how the ICU was trying to capitalize off the backflip, and my personal concerns along with different community concerns, and an overall overview of, is figure skating here to stay? My answer to that, we will see. We will have to. Is figure skating here to stay? I mean, is the backflip here to stay in figure skating? We will see. But anyway, I will hear from you guys next week for, I don't know. Ugh, it's so bad. I've been so busy with studying in school that I haven't really focused a lot on the world of figure skating. But I promise to try to make a really, 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 really interesting episode soon, but we will see. But thank you so much for hearing this conversation on the backflip. I will see you next week for something new, exciting, different, and we will definitely see what comes out of that. Thank you so much, and bye bye.